Hello everybody, welcome. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. We're here live in St. Paul, Minnesota, near the Capitol building. We're in front of the state office building right now where the House of Representatives and the joint legislative offices are. Across the street from the state capitol. We're here to film a press conference that'll be starting very shortly. The press conference is regarding the Hardel Sherrell Act. Hardel Sherrell, you can see him featured in the orange shirt of his mom, Delcia Perry. He perished in Beltrami County Jail in 2017. Another family that has also lost a loved one, Tony May and Vernon May, who also died in Beltrami County, has just arrived. Welcome, and here's the press conference. If you want to know more information, go to unicornriot.ninja.
Communities United Against Police Brutality, but I'm also a board member of the organization Be Their Voices, an organization that works to ensure that no one else will ever die again in the county jails in the state of Minnesota from a lack of medical care. This is a very important issue. We have had a serious problem in this state for a very long time where people have not gotten the medical care that they needed, where people have not gotten the psychiatric care that they needed, and where people have died as a result. And we're talking about people, in many cases, who have not even gone to trial. In many cases, are serving only a short sentence for missing a court date. These are never reasons that people should die in our prison and jail systems. And it's outlandish that this happens, and we are working very hard to see that that problem ends. And so you're going to hear some speakers today, and so I'll be introducing first to you Delcia Perry. Her son Hardel Sherrell died in the Beltrami County Jail. She's going to tell you about it, and she is the founder and president of Be Their Voices. Delcia?
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everybody, for coming. First, I want to thank God. I thank God for what He's already done and what He's going to continue to do. He sent Stephanie Landblad into that Beltrami County Jail, and I thank God that she was someone who wanted to do the right thing, being a God-fearing woman, to tell the truth of the ugly racism that continues to happen inside Minnesota jails. And I thank God for her. Thank you, Stephanie. If you're watching, I thank you, and I cannot wait to meet you. You cannot even imagine what this means to me, but I am just so grateful. What she did next was she wrote letters. She wrote 4 of them. One to the Board of Physicians, another to the nursing physician, the DOC, and I believe the Ramsey County Examiner's Office. And none of them have acted except the DOC, who we now know, Paul Schnell, has taken my concerns very seriously, because now other families have been coming up with the same similar stories. And we are saying enough is enough. There have been changes within the DOC, and we're very grateful for that, but we've got a long way yet to go. In that, I want to say that the Board of Physicians have not done anything yet, and I am hoping that they will do something very soon. They should have already done something. When she wrote her letters days after my son's death, and let me say days, we're talking about, it's going on 3 years now since my son's been deceased, and yet we still have not gotten any type of justice. And it's time. It's definitely time. So I call on the Board of Physicians. When are you going to act? How long does it take to do an investigation? Same with the nursing board. I'm putting you on Front Street too. How long does it take to do an investigation and find someone guilty? Now we know Dr. Todd Leonard has a horrible record and has had many deaths with him being in charge. Men Medical has to end. They need to be shut down, just like the Beltrami County Jail needs to be shut down. Now, we know that Sheriff Hardel conveniently retired. But guess what? He's not off the hook either. The blood is on his hands too. Sheriff Vital, you should be ashamed of yourself. the current sheriff over Beltrami County Jail. You should be ashamed of yourselves and for not calling these people forward who you know have done wrong. Neither of you deserves the title of sheriff. I don't even know how you got the job, to be honest. And Sheriff Bidle, you should be fired immediately for not doing what was right. Everybody could see on those videos what happened to my son. A blind man could see what happened to Hardel. And it is time for justice. And it's time for some criminal charges to come forth. So we're looking forward to having the FBI finish their investigation so that there are criminal charges and convictions that follow immediately. Dr. Todd Leonard being the first one to go. Calandra Allen, she was the jail administrator. I don't know what she's doing now, but she needs to be right after him. And all the medical staff that supposedly were supposed to be providing medical care to Hardel, they all need to be fired, and they all need to lose their licenses and criminally charged and convicted. Nobody's going to be let off the hook. I pray that God would have mercy on their soul. Because I am a God-fearing woman, I pray that God would have mercy on their souls for what they did. Because what they did was they chose to do the work of Satan. And they must be held accountable. See, what they don't understand is the word of God says, touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm. Well, I happen to be both. And when they touched my seed, Hardel Sherrell, they made a bad decision. I'm not going to do anything about it because my Heavenly Father is. Because He said, vengeance is mine. And we will see justice. I'm not looking for man's justice. I'm looking for God's justice. Because that's the only justice, really, that we know will bring about a true kind of justice. Because the real justice would be Hardel standing right here next to me. Hardel should still be alive. Stephanie did everything she could do. She sounded the alarm. She tried to comfort him in his crying out and begging for help. She did everything that she thought she could do, and still nothing. She saw what has happened and how we've not gotten justice, and it's been nearly 3 years. Enough is enough. The killings, the murders, the neglect, the abuse, the torture must end now. And I thank you all for coming out and giving me your time on this day. Thank you.
The death of Hardel Sherrell was a tragedy. This young man, 27 years old, entered the prison, a healthy man, walking, laughing with the jailers when he walked in. He was healthy when he started. And 6 days later, he was taken out in a body bag because of medical neglect. A simple ailment that could have been treated successfully in the hospital. And the jailers, the nursing staff, all of them ignored Mr. Sherrell's needs. Stephanie Lundblad is a nurse practitioner who, when she saw Hardel, said, something is very wrong here. He needs to go to the hospital. So she arranged for him to be sent to the hospital. Initially, the jail administrator refused it. But then she insisted, and he was ended up being taken to the hospital. But then the corrections officers interceded with the doctor and said, he's faking. He's faking. And because they told him that he was faking, that Hardel was faking, that doctor did not give proper care. He sent Hardel back to the jail to his death. And Hardel laid on the floor and died. As a result of this, Delshia and the other family members have been relentless in their pursuit of justice. And as part of their pursuit of justice, they have crafted the Hardel Sherrell Act. And the Hardel Sherrell Act is a bill that's in front of our legislature right now. In fact, it's sitting in with other accountability bills in the Public Safety and Judiciary Conference Committee. And it's waiting to be passed. And this is a bill that would have landmark effects on the way that medical care is provided in the jails. It is essential. It must happen. But right now we have legislators that are playing a little game, doing a little negotiating. They don't see the importance of this act. But the Hardel Sherrell Act must pass now.
Yes.
It must pass now. So our next speaker that I'd like to bring up now is Zorislav Lederman. He is the attorney for Delshia Perry and has worked extensively on this case and is quite knowledgeable. Zorslav.
Thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Delcia Perry has been working tirelessly ever since putting Hardel to rest to seek justice not only for Hardel, but to make sure that what happened to him doesn't ever happen to any other person in the state. I want to talk a little bit today about the Hardel Sherrell Act and our frustration and disappointment with the fact that today, on the last day the legislature is in session, even though the Hardel Sherrell Act had passed the House, it has no action still in the Senate. The Hardel Sherrell Act is a historic piece of legislation that will fundamentally change how medical care is provided to inmates at Minnesota County jails. We currently have kind of the Wild West with multiple counties around the state. There are some very broad and imprecise rules that they have to follow, but otherwise they're allowed to do kind of what they want. The Hardel Sherrell Act was intended to change all that. It will change how people are treated in the county jails. It'll make sure that people are treated as human beings and are not tortured and abused, as we've seen time and time again with Hardel Sherrell and many others. The Hardel Sherrell Act will save lives, and it will make sure that people that walk into a county jail to pay their debt to society are able to walk out on their 2 feet and go back to their families. I want to cover just quickly some of the main issues that were drafted into the Hardel Sherrell Act. First item is updated mental health assessments and medical treatment for people that are serving time in county jails. The Hardel Sherrell Act will also prohibit certain types of use of force, including chokeholds.
Yes.
It would also put into effect a process for investigating jail deaths to make sure that when a person dies in custody, that there is a neutral and unbiased investigation by an outside agency that will come in, look at what happened, and provide some sort of findings and proposals to make sure that the mistakes that were made are never made again. The Hardel Sherrell Act will provide people who are in jail inmates, an opportunity to designate an emergency contact. Somebody they can tell the jail, hey, this person loves me, they care for me, and if they call asking questions about my well-being, about my medical care, about my mental health, you have the right to tell them everything. We don't have this currently, and so how many mothers and loved ones have called to various county jails asking questions? Where is my son? Where's my daughter? Where's my husband? And they keep getting, we can't tell you. We're not able to release this information to you. It's confidential. The Hardel Sherrell Act would end all that so that people serving time on the inside have a voice on the outside.
Right.
And finally, the Hardel Sherrell Act would have a provision that would allow the Department of Corrections to revoke licenses
Yes.
of various county jails that have demonstrated the pattern of abuse, neglect, and complete incompetence in terms of how they treat inmates at their jails. Currently, there is no process in place for that. Once a county jail becomes operational, no matter what happens there is no procedure in place to hold them accountable. The Hardel Sherrell Act would do that and take care of all of these issues. The Hardel Sherrell Act has support from various areas in our state. The Minnesota Department of Corrections supports the Hardel Sherrell Act, and Paul Schnell himself has testified before the legislature that the current situation in the county jails is a crisis. The bill was also drafted with the assistance of the Minnesota Sheriff's Association, and so the people that are in charge of holding jail and prison inmates in our state actually support the Hardel Sherrell Act. The Hardel Sherrell Act would not only save lives, but it would also save money, because people who have any sort of a mild medical condition or a mild mental health issue at the jail would be receiving care right away instead of their condition progressing until the point that they're severely ill and they need emergency medical care, which is very expensive. The act would also save tax money in terms of settlements and lawsuits, because if people aren't dying in county jails, then there would not be any lawsuits that cost taxpayers money. A little bit over a week ago, Delcia, on Mother's Day weekend, showed up to testify before the legislature. She talked about Hardel. She talked about the need for reform. She talked about other families who have lost loved ones in Minnesota County jails. She cried, she prayed, she poured out her soul before everyone who was listening. She begged the members of the legislature to take action now during this session to make sure that we don't have any more people dying senseless deaths in Minnesota County jails. And so we stand here today on the last day of the legislative session, and we're asking, why hasn't the Hardel Sherrell Act passed today? It cleared the House, it got stuck in the Senate, just like many other bills have in the recent past. So I was wondering, maybe they're not taking any bills. Maybe they're just on vacation or not voting right now. So I took a look at what's been happening over the last 2 weeks, this month, in the Senate. So what happened this month is they passed a bill which raises salaries for Minnesota state troopers and BCA agents. So rather than focus on people dying in county jails, they're raising salaries for law enforcement. And last Friday, this is after Del Shia showed up to testify before the committee. Last Friday, they passed a bill in the Senate targeting the Minnesota Freedom Fund. This is the place that helps people bail out of jail so that they don't die in jail. And so not only are they ignoring the Hardel Sherrell Act, they're ignoring people dying in jail, but they're taking steps to make sure that people who are in jail can't leave. And that's not right. Since 2015, 53 people have died in jails across the state. And this isn't only happening here in the metro area, it's happening all over. In rural Minnesota, north, south, and here in the metro area as well. So we ask, how many more people have to be added to this list before the legislature takes action? How many more children have to have families with no parents? How many more families have to be shattered before the legislature does anything to stop people from dying in jail? People who come to jail have to be able to walk out, and everyone who comes into Minnesota jail right now is at risk of dying there without proper reason and without proper medical and mental health care. And so our message today is simple. Stop playing politics in people's lives and pass the Hardel Sherrell Act now. Thank you.
Did we get your name, sir?
Zorislav Lederman.
Spelling?
ZORISLAVLEYDERMAN.
Thank you for that.
So I think you can see how incredibly important this bill is, and it's outlandish to us that the legislature is playing games and trading back and forth about budget using these important and extremely necessary bills as fodder in their little game of trading off. This bill should be passed without any being involved in any gamesmanship whatsoever. It needs to get passed immediately. It's past the time for this bill to become law so that we can save more lives. And now I'm going to bring up Trahern Cruz, who is with Black Lives Matter Minnesota. He's also the brother of Del Shia and the uncle of Hardel Sherrell.
I remember, thank you all for coming out and being here today. The Hardel Sherrell Act is not a Democrat law, it's not a Republican law, it's a law for Minnesotans to keep Minnesotans safe. So a lot of the people who have died, it's not just black people who are dying in Minnesota jails, it's Republicans, it's Democrats, it's independents. There's a Republican senator, ex-senator, whose son has died in Minnesota jails, and if the Hardel Sherrell Act was in place now, that wouldn't have happened. So
Yes.
the Hardel Sherrell Act is not a partisan bill. It's a bipartisan piece of legislation that should be signed into law today. Another important aspect of the Hardel Sherrell Act is that it calls for, if there's a medical problem with the inmate, that the DOC needs to be contacted within 24 hours. The DOC wasn't contacted until we had to start making noise and getting out and protesting about what happened to Hardel Sherrell. We also think there should be audio, that we should be able to hear what's going on in the jails right now. There's just shady camera work. So the Hardel Sherrell Act should be passed into law because it's going to save lives of black, white, Puerto Rican, Asian, and of course our Native brothers and sisters who are being extremely harmed. Stephanie Bunker will be alive today if the Hardel Sherrell Act was in place. Hardel Sherrell would be alive today if the Hardel Sherrell Act was in place. When a person is in a medical Segway, they're supposed to be checked on every 15 to 30 minutes. Hardel Sherrell laid on the ground for 8 hours, 8 torturous, terrorizing hours until he died. And nobody checked on him. And nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been fired. No licenses have been revoked. So along with the Hardel Sherrell Act being passed, we want to see some arrests, we want to see some charges, and we want to see some licenses revoked. We want to see Beltrami County Jail bulldozed and knocked down because there's holes in the wall. They got urinals in the female part of the jail, and it's just not a good building. It's only about 30 years old, but when they do an estimate on it, they say it's like 200 years old. So tear down Beltrami County Jail, tear down white supremacy and institutional racism, and pass the Hardel Sherrell Act today. Thank you.
Next, we're going to bring up Claire, who is with Naj Powell's family. Claire.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Clara Akbar, C-L-A-R-A, last name A-K-B-A-R. I am the aunt of Najakan Adonis Powell, who died September 11th in Hennepin County Jail. He came from the mental health institution at Hennepin Healthcare. Hennepin Healthcare called the police. They called the police to come pick my nephew up, who had no criminal charges. He was never supposed to be in jail. They picked him up. They communicated with each other. They picked him up from the mental health ward at Hennepin County, put him in jail because he refused to take medication.
That ain't right.
The medication wasn't working for him. So, and we could clearly tell the medication wasn't working for him. So, from the hospital, mental health ward, they put him in jail. Shortly after, we found out he was hung, dead. None of this is right. He didn't deserve to, one, be in jail. He was where he was, which is at Hennepin Healthcare, getting the help that he was asking for. My sister and I and our family, Ty, Prosper, none of us should have to be here today.
That's right.
We're asking for justice. We are asking for Hennepin Healthcare to take accountability for what they have done. We're asking for the Department of Justice, Hennepin, to take accountability for what they have done, their neglect of my nephew. He should have received the right care, and he should not have been in jail in the first place for refusing to take medication. We're asking that you all remember his name. We're having a press conference June 12th outside of the hospital. So you guys will be contacted. Our family is mourning, but we know that justice will come. And that's all I have to say. And just one last thing is that I stand on the same grounds that my ancestors stand on. I stand on the ground for over 400 or 500 years later, after lynchings and killing of people of color. Here I still stand, defending the life of innocent people. I shouldn't be here, we shouldn't be here, but we are. And we're saying, we're not asking, we're demanding accountability.
That's right.
We're demanding that the Hardel Sherrell Act be passed.
Yes.
There is no question about whether it should or should not be passed. If you're a human being with a soul and a spirit, you know this bill should be passed. Thank you all. Ashe.
And you know, I just want to say, this is why I had to start Be Their Voices. Because what my son had gone through, I didn't even want to start an organization, but I had other families calling me, and they were asking me to help them. They said, they hear you, they listen to you, your voice is strong, please help us. I couldn't turn them down, I couldn't. So these are families that are with Be Their Voices, and I'm grateful to God for each and every one of them. And I just ask you guys to look at our website to see what it is that we're doing and see how involved we are to help bring about change. They have to hear our voices because they didn't want to hear our babies' voices. When they cried out in those jail cells, they didn't want to hear them. Now they will hear us. Their voices will be heard.
Yes.
Our last speaker today will be, and then we'll have questions. Our last speaker today will be Aldine Morrison. She came all the way here from Bemidji to speak today. She is the mom of both Vernon May and Tony May. And so, come on up.
Hello, and thank you for letting us come and do this. It's been a long time for us to talk. Every time we get an invite, we go and let people know what happened to my son. He died 8/11/16 at Beltrami County Jail. He was only 26 years old. They said he died of a possible heart attack. They still haven't said what he really died from. We still haven't gotten any confirmation of what he died from. We're still waiting. It's been almost 4 years. About 5, I'm sorry. And we still don't know what happened to him. I've asked the BEC and BCA, sorry, in Bemidji to see if they could do further testing on some of his the blood that they had taken from him, from his mouth, to see if we could have that done and see what it was that was in his system at the time. I'm still waiting. I never got a call back. I call back, I leave messages, I still don't get a call back. These are some of the people that did lose their lives. Stephanie Bunker, she was a suicide. She was a mother, a grandmother. If they only had did their jobs, she would be alive today.
That's right.
And then Vernon May, right here, he was shot 9 times. 9 times. And he was laying down in the backseat of a car. They didn't have to shoot him 9 times.
That's right.
Maybe 1 time, 9 times, maybe. Never. That's murder. And then Hardel Sherrell. He died in September 2018. And this is the most horrific I ever seen in my life. All of these people that died are all horrific. They should never have died if only the Beltrami County Jail would have done their jobs.
Say that thing.
But now we are. My son Tony, he was the father of 4 kids. They have been in and out of homes because their mom can't get her life situated. So we end up taking the kids back 3 times now so far. And within 5 years, nobody ever helped them. Nobody ever put their hands out to say, come on kids, we'll help you. We'll keep you together as a family. We know what you're going through is hard, but nobody's ever done that. It's always been me or his aunts and uncles that are getting together to keep their family together. It affects us all. Her brothers, his brothers, Chad, Lee, Russell, his 2 sisters, Tara, who's here with me, and Amber. We all suffer, and we're still suffering to this day, that we can't go and say hi to him. We have to go visit a grave. We have to take his kids there. They want to go see Dad. Well, you know where we take them? To the graveyard. That's where we go. And that's sad. They should never, ever have to go through that, ever. Nobody should. None of these people should never have died. If only Beltrami County Jail would do their job, quit harassing people, quit beating them up. We have so many lists of people that have gotten beaten up, but they're all too afraid to do anything. Because if you live where we live, you're not going to get justice because of the skin of your color of your skin.
Right.
You're not going to get justice. They're going to shove you underneath the rug like they did everything else. You're not going to get any help. They're going to try to say, oh yeah, okay, we took your complaint down. And you call back and you go, well, we got it here somewhere. No. The only time I ever seen any kind of hope for any of our issues was when she helped us. When she helped us. We went to her for help. And she's the only one. If she can make to go in front of senators and stuff, we need her. We need that act, Hardel Sherrell Act. And we need it bad.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
And they got to start doing something. They got to be held accountable. They got to still quit murdering,
Yes.
killing our family members. They deserve to be treated like human beings. They're not dogs. They're not animals. They're human beings. So treat people with respect. We need this Hardel Sherrell Act, and we need it now.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
That's all I have to say, but I could go on and on if you guys would let me, but I know I have to be back up.
Thank you, Mama Mayor. Love you.
You know, and the thing that you have to keep in mind is this. We've had something like 57 people die in just the last few years in jails around the state, in county jails. Men's Medical provides care to approximately 60% of the jails in the state, and they have an atrocious record for essentially providing a lack of care. They have $1 million contracts at all of these jails, and yet the way that they act, you would think that they weren't even getting paid. They refuse to provide care for people because, well, they're worried about their bottom line and not about the lives of people, and that's the reality. And so the Hardel Sherrell Act will put a check on these private medical providers, it will put a check on the jails, and it will provide a mechanism for communication between inmates and people that love them outside to make sure that they have a voice even as they are inside the buildings. And so this act is extremely important, and we need the legislature to stop playing games and get this thing passed. This is the essential ask that we have for today, is you've got to pass the Hardel Sherrell Act and do it now before anyone else dies on any other jail floors anywhere in the state. Now, we have time for a few questions. Do you have any questions?
Just one. How concerned are you about the passage of this act during this session?
Well, we're at the end of the session and they haven't passed it yet, so of course we're very concerned. They're busy, as Zorslav pointed out, passing raises for law enforcement and passing bills to try to make it harder for people to bail out of the very jails where people could conceivably die. Because of a lack of care. So, this seems to be their focus. They're also, it seems to me, from my own observations, that especially the Republican senators are holding all of these bills hostage to get the budget that they want. And so, yes, we are very concerned that they are not interested in actually making real change, but instead of playing parlor games to get the measures that they want. And this harms the community, and that's not acceptable. Other questions?
Yep. And
Zorslav, do you want? Oh, yes, please come on.
I'll add to it.
Come and introduce yourself.
I'll add to that. I think we know that this morning, Zainab Zaynab, Mohammed Mohamed, and I'm with Care Minnesota. We know that this morning the budget negotiations was released, or at least some sort of an agreement has come to. And we know that over the weekend they worked 24 hours to make sure for that to happen. It's important that they work just as hard to get this to pass so that other lives are not taken. Especially on the Democrat side, or the governor, we know that they run on these policies to make sure that they're going to keep these families safe and it's important that they keep up that promise and that they negotiate on behalf of the people, not on the basis of what the Republicans want.
Yes, right.
Two-pronged question. What happens had it not passed? And then secondly, is there another act that's similar to this in any other state?
Every state has legislation pertaining to county jails. So we have a system here in Minnesota. We have a Department of Corrections that operates the Minnesota prisons, and there are several all over the state. And then we have the county jails. I don't know how this bill compares to other states, but what happens if the bill doesn't pass is only one thing, and that's more people are going to die. We know that. That's a given. And so the longer we wait, the longer we sit around, the longer they're over there playing games, as Michelle said, holding these bills hostage, the more possibility we risk of somebody else dying, another family losing their loved one, and then more mothers having to bury their children. And that's just not right.
Right.
Any other questions?
And I think, the governor has used his executive powers for a lot of different things. So I think if this bill passes, that this bill is so important that Governor Walz should definitely use his executive powers to put this in the law, because this bill will save lives. And Minnesota has a crisis on its hands in our Minnesota jails with 56 new investigations. So we can't afford another 56 deaths to happen in Minnesota jail. So if it doesn't pass, we demand that Governor Walz take executive action on the Hardel Sherrell Act.
Yeah, that's right. And what we do know is that Governor Walz is prepared to sign this act if we can get it out of the legislature and on his desk. He is prepared to sign it, but what he hasn't seemed to be prepared to do is put any actual pressure on the legislature to get it on his desk. And that's unacceptable to us also. The people who are in jails are just as much members of our society as anyone else, and they absolutely deserve to get medical care and to get the proper treatment in those jails. And the fact that we're treating people in the jails as if they don't have the same rights as everyone else is appalling and atrocious, remembering that many people that are in the jails have not even been prosecuted for anything yet. And so, and even if they have, it's outlandish that they do not get equal treatment from everyone else. And it is frankly based on racism and classism. So, we are expecting that the governor, we've been asking for the governor to step up and apply pressure because we cannot have any more gamesmanship on these important bills. Any other questions?
Yeah, sort of redundant, but based on what you all have been also saying, we got the May family, it's been coming up on 5 years. We have Hardel's family coming up on 3 years. And then there's other families that was mentioned. Can you just talk about briefly the residual effects on your family that this has caused?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that, because it's been very difficult. We've seen some families get justice, some form of justice, and we're grateful, like the George Floyd family. But we've been fighting for years, and we've got no justice at all. And it's like, wait a minute, what about us? We're out here, and we've been pounding pavement. We've been doing everything that we know to do. I didn't realize it, but it was 5 days after Hardel died that we were at the governor's mansion. I'm like, 5 days? I was out of my mind, obviously. But I mean, we're so enraged, and we are trying to do everything that we can do to bring awareness to what's happening, so that we not just get justice, but that the change comes. And I'm glad you asked that, because through everything that I've been doing, and Carol Levin and how they have come out and done the investigation, and I thank God for AJ Legault, he's done an amazing job. Through what we've been able to do, there were 56 names, additional investigations that of people you all have not even heard of their names. So I'm just going to read these names off to you. Monte Tibbetts, Kevin Whipson, Christina Hanner, Ronald Kettle, Jared Scott, Darren Benias, Wesley Tork Jr., Abby Rudolph, Kobe Marcel, Donna Jones, Carmen Leftwich, Flavio Rios, Thomas Henry, Bret Hart Gilman, Robert Kellermeyer, Christina Duran, Miguel Garcia, Tristan Keys, Gabrielle Farnsworth, Brenda Olson, Christopher Jones, David Cook, David Lane, Dancia Winslow, George Washington, Ernest Silvers, James Shockmore, Matt Haas, Troy Ash, Larry Monson, Tyler Varnum, Christian Smalley, Billy Nelson, Troy Bicey, Dylan Brenner, James Linus, Justice White, Caleb Carlton, Kenneth Duprew, Jack Price, Kristen Anderson, Kobe Laidlaw, Todd Erickson, Diana Balderas, Stephen Berry, Richard Bild, and Joshua Fuhrer. That's too many names. That's way too many names. These are names we've not even heard of, and the only reason I got the list of names is because of the investigative work that AJ Legault has done and the pushing that I've done. And I've been knocking down doors, and I've been pounding pavement. I've been calling. I've been writing letters. I'm like, who else haven't we called? Of course I call on Jesus first, because he is in control, and he sits high and he looks low, and he has the final say. Of course I'm always calling on him first, but I'm like, God, please let these people hear our cries and let this nonsense stop once and for all. Thank you.
Did you want to talk about the residual impacts?
And your families?
My name again is Eldine Morrison. I'm from Beltrami County area, Bemidji, Minnesota. And we've had so many people that are getting abused by the police. You go to Beltrami County Jail, and when my son went there, I thought that was the safest place for him. You know what he got pulled over for? DWI. And what he did was he took off. So they arrested him for fleeing an officer and DWI. That was his crime. Well, all of these people that we mentioned here, they all walked into Beltrami County Jail. And they all left in body bags. This tore all of our families up. It's hard to try to live again, but you have to, because you have other families that are looking forward for you to make a step in the right direction for everybody. And we need this Hardel Sherrell Act. My grandkids don't have their dad anymore. He was a young dad. He was 16 years old when he had his first child. But he worked. He did odd jobs. And he always made sure they got what they wanted. We all did. And it's been hard. And it's like it was yesterday. Even today, when we're coming down here, I have a hard time talking about it. That hurt will never, ever go away. And we don't want other people to be like us.
That's right.
We want this Hardel Sherrell Act to go into effect. We know, in reality, that we are going to lose some. But now it's out in the open. They can't hide anymore. Where are they going to go hide? They can't. Because Del Shay will be right behind them, uncovering all their stuff. I was kidding. But anyway, that's...
Whatever God has me to. Yes.
Our family has been so broken up. And if it wasn't for his kids, and every time we look at his kids and we see him, we see all their actions, and they bring back his memory, and we're there to fight some more for them. And we've got to keep on doing this because, like I said, other family members should not ever go through this hurt. Beltrami County Jail needs to be accountable for their actions and for not doing their jobs. And if they would have done their jobs, Tony May Jr. and Hardel and Bellinger, they would have been here today.
Yes, Bruce Lundmark.
There's so many names. Those are the only ones I can remember. But there are so many names, and there should never, ever be. We're supposed to be human beings. Human beings with feelings. Well, what happened? Especially in Beltrami County, is the most prejudiced county you ever want to live in. But it's next to our reservation, so that's where we live. And guess what? Who do they pull over? The minorities. And they're going to make you pay for it. And nobody is rich, so everybody gets together just to try and get them out, because nowadays, you're going to walk in there, and you might not walk out. You will leave in a body bag. I always call somebody, if I know them, watch your family member. Call them. Ask the sheriff or the guard on duty to give them a check. Ask them to check on them. That's their job. Even if you got 15 minutes to go check up on them, go again. Go right afterwards. Check. Do your work. That's what you were hired for. That's all I got to say. But we do need the Hardel Sherrell Act passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mama May.
So the question was, what is the residual effect on families? The residual effect on families, it's not just the families, it's the community. The community, the families, we hurt significantly with the loss of a loved one that was never supposed to be. It's like part of your soul is missing. And this carries on throughout the community. So the community is feeling the ricochet effect of a tragic death that was unnecessary. So, like I said, we're not asking for anything, we're demanding. And what is that? And I also see another effect. Just like clearly, we're right across the street, you have a Trump rally going on. Since we've had this press conference, there's been several people walk up here, and it's clearly demonstrating a separation. So you have folks that are hateful, starting from the Capitol all the way down to its little tiny people, over there, like we're minding our business, and people have the right to believe what they want to believe when it comes to vaccination, anti-masking, it's whatever. You have that right. You're an American. Just like we have a right to live. Mm-hmm. We have a right to live. That's right. We have a right to go into the hospital and feel safe. Go into a jail and feel like, okay, let's serve our time. Yes. And whoever did whatever. And leave alive. Being mentally ill should not be a death sentence. Right. So-called committing a crime should not be a death sentence. Right. So the families, we're feeling it. But the whole community is feeling it. The United States is feeling this. Yeah. So America is feeling it. Thank you.
So we're going to wrap up now, but just want to mention again that, these families come out here. They could be in their homes having their private grief and their private pain and their private sadness, but they don't want to see this happen to anyone else. So they have worked very, very hard to put together this Hardel Sherrell Act. They have worked very hard to promote this act at the legislature. They bring their pain out and put it out in the public so that people can understand the need for this bill. They have done that with the legislature over and over. They've testified. And what we're saying now is it's time for the legislature to act. Act now and pass the Hardel Sherrell Act now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, any other questions? You guys are all done, right? Thank you. I don't know if I gave you all
I just want to say that anytime that your channel 11.
Century.
Oh.
Channel 11's been doing great job.
Awesome. That's what I wanted to say. That's what I wanted to say.
It might be one of those guys. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Are you guys channel 11? Which one is channel 11?
Thank you all for joining. We're going to grab an interview real quick. Give me a second. So what you just witnessed was a press conference for the passing of the Hardel Sherrell Act, which is an act, legislative act that's been put to the legislator, to the House and the Senate. It's passed the House from my understanding, and it would give sweeping powers to the families basically to actually communicate with the jailers and the victims or the inmates who are going through medical distress. I'm going to link up an interview. Give me a second.
Yes. Well, she never should.
Would you want to?
I worked a night shift. I feel I'm drained a little tired. But if anyways, I mean, I have questions.
Basically, just like, did you hear about the whistleblower? Coming out? So just basically sort of anonymous. What would be your interpretation of going in there and seeing, a patient in the condition of coming out? And then,
I could try now being operating off like 1 hour service yesterday, but I won't need that.
okay, don't.
Unless you want to schedule something later.
I mean, I would like to do that as well, but we are live right now, if you're comfortable. Only if you're comfortable. Okay, cool. So could you introduce yourself, and you can also tell everybody that you're off of 1 hour sleep. You've been working all day. But can you talk about who you are, and then what would you do in the position of the nurse Stephanie, who was a whistleblowing nurse, who came out and sort of talked about Dr. Leonard, who denied Hardel Sherrell medical care. Can you talk about that situation and what you saw in those videos, if you saw some of those videos?
Yep, so sorry. My name is Reverend Jeanette Rupert. I'm a licensed minister as well as an ICU nurse. And those videos are painful to watch. Absolutely painful to watch. And we take an oath to do no harm. And I think that it is important for any medical staff to understand. I mean, what she did, the nurse practitioner, was spot on. She saw something, it didn't sit right. We all have that kind of inner gut that, like, even though I practice and I work in a hospital and I work in an ICU, and even when you don't know something or you're not sure about something, you ask your colleagues. We work as a team. We work with other physicians and the other nurses and the nurse practitioners and the physician's assistants, and it's just a team for that care of that one individual. It's a whole team. And I commend her. She by herself saw something that wasn't right and took the lead and called them out on it. People are people. People are people. We need to treat. I treat my patients like they're my family. You don't.
I know, right?
Just because they're in a correctional facility does not author a death sentence. Do no harm. So when she walked in and she saw something wasn't right, she took the right steps. She took the right steps and she called it out. And so I think that it's just eye-opening for me as a nurse working in a hospital, that to see that kind of treatment, it broke my heart. It put me to tears, because we're talking about human life. We're talking about, when she said that, a dog in its kennel is treated better than the way that Hardel was treated. I mean, when you watch the videos and when you see it's sickening and it's embarrassing that we as human beings, that we have that audacity to say whether or not somebody's faking and to not act and give them the benefit of the doubt. So my heart is broken for our system. My heart is broken for our nation. My heart is broken for people of color. And I'm here standing and praying for a better tomorrow for my kids. I've got 4 kids. I want to make sure that the world that they live in, that they see that you can't just treat people any old kind of way just because of, whatever background that you may see or whatever perceived bias that you may have about that person. People are people. And so walking in that situation, you see someone crying out for help and saying, I'm in pain, I don't feel good. Assess the situation. Assess the situation. See what's going on. Because medically it was clear that he had a medical condition. They should have had that addressed, and he went to the ER. That should have been addressed then, not diagnosed post-mortem. Because he's no longer here to live his life, to take care of his family, to be here, to be an inspiration to this world, to reach his calling, to develop his skill set, to touch other lives. Who knows? We don't know the possibilities of that young man's life. He could have done his time, and his life could have been changed. He's 6 feet under. So I'm very thankful for the nurse practitioner who took the bravery road. She took a road of bravery to stand against the opposition, because the opposition was saying one thing and she kept, So anyone out there who's in healthcare, just know that trust your gut. Always trust your gut as well, and be brave. Be brave.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You got a few moments right here when you're done? Large gathering over here. All right, trade hands. Yeah, let's go this way. Can you talk about Dr. Death, who you've termed Dr. Death, Dr. Todd Leonard, and Mend Correctional Care, and some of the happenings that have happened since Hardel's death?
So since Hardel has died, I think there's been more deaths in Beltrami County Jail. Dr. Leonard, but after those deaths, Dr. Leonard has received more contracts, and I think he just got a contract in Anoka County to take care of those. In that letter that the whistleblower nurse put out, she said that he told her to write that Hardel swallowed a sock, and that's how he died. So I wonder, when we start going through all these cases, what kind of lies are they going to say? Similar to when we just watched the George Floyd trial, we got to see how they try to lie on the victim. They blame the victim for their criminality. Dr. Leonard is a criminal, so he tries to criminalize the inmates to get away with the murdering them, and then still getting paid, to give deadly care. So we've called him Dr. Death. We think Dr. Death should be arrested. He should have his license stripped from him, and he should serve serious time. One more thing. Beltrami County Jail needs to be bulldozed. That building is a death trap, and a lot of people are really dying in there. It is horrible. There's no reason why Governor Tim Walz, if this doesn't pass today, that he can't use his executive powers to start implementing some of these laws and start saving lives here. And not just saving lives, saving taxpayer money so we don't have to pay for these lawsuits and things like that are going to keep coming. I think that's going to be about 56 new lawsuits also because of neglect and abuse. And neglect and abuse is not just derelict of duty. Also, the guards should be charged. The guards should be arrested. The guards should lose their licenses. All that. So there's a lot of things that haven't happened yet. The nursing board, they need to be held accountable. They haven't done nothing. They knew this close to 3 years ago. Have done nothing. So this makes Minnesota look really bad. I think our lawmakers to try to do something. Also, there has been no meaningful legislation as far as police reform or criminal justice reform that has passed in the state where George Floyd was murdered at. So again, this isn't the Hardel Sherrell Act isn't a Democrat law, it isn't a Republican law. It's a Minnesota law that will save Minnesota lives.
Thank you for that. Can you bring some more background as to how these investigations started? So the DOC did an investigation into Hardel's death and found nothing wrong. But then a new commissioner comes in, and your sister and you have been pushing. And can you talk about that effort and then the new investigation that Paul Schnell did?
So when we did the state fair shutdown, there was somebody that said some stuff and then it went viral. So my thing was, I was like, we're about to get this footage back. The people we need to get it to is Unicorn Riot. And before anybody, I was like, we got to go through grassroots media because they're gonna put it out raw. And then once you guys put it out raw like that, it forced other agencies to go with the truth because it was getting big numbers and stuff like that. And Channel 9 too took a big step. But you got Unicorn. Me personally, I was like, we got to go with Unicorn Riot first. Then Michelle told my sister, we got to go to Unicorn Riot and get this footage out. So we were pushing and demanding. We went to Beltrami County Jail, did a rally. We went out to Men, did a rally. But once that footage got out, and you guys did an excellent job, you guys should get like a Academy Award for that. Georgia Fort, Unicorn Riot did a great interview with my sister, and it showed how they had lied. So like you said, the DOC they first did an investigation, and what I was hearing is like, oh, he fell in our arms and we tried to save him and resuscitate him. And I told my sister, no way they did that. That's not what happened at all. So we kept pushing, and then once we got the footage, we seen they didn't try to save him. They left him on the ground for 8 hours to die. They watched him die, a torturous, terrorizing death. So that's why I say it's important to get that body cam footage out early, and the earlier you get it, the more truth you're going to see. So even when we got that footage back, we seen a lot of discrepancies with like time stamps. One piece of footage said he was there when he's actually here, and it was just really, really crazy. So the Hardel Sherrell Act addresses that with making sure that there's audio on the camera. The family should get, and not even just in jail, but family should get access to body cam footage within 24 hours. The DOC needs to be contacted within 24 hours if somebody has died or is going through like medical problems and stuff like that. So I think if it passes, it'll be a good model for other jails, like in Cleveland, like in Oklahoma. There's riots and stuff because people are not getting the care that they need. And when we talk about, to my progressive friends who talk about Medicare for all and things like that, that also should apply to inmates.
Anything else you'd like to add? I know you've been following this. Obviously, it's your nephew.
Yes.
And so it's a family thing too. Can you talk about also how that's impacted you, and then just anything else?
I think we got us, because it happened so far away. It's hard to keep the necessary pressure on them like that. So we're going to be striving to do that this summer, but people should be arrested already. You know, the licenses should be stripped. It's been 2 years, so I think the state of Minnesota needs to start moving a lot quicker with arresting the people who were involved in this, taking Dr. Leonard's license, arresting him, knocking down Beltrami County Jail. And you can do it. We've seen it with Dante Wright. We shouldn't have to force you to do the right thing. We shouldn't have to burn down Beltrami for us to get justice for Hardel Sherrell. We've seen people move quickly with Dante Wright. We see George Floyd's family has been compensated. Derek Chauvin has been sentenced. And we want the same thing to happen for Hardel Sherrell's family, for Tony May's family, and for Naj's family too. And we shouldn't have to protest to make that happen. Appreciate you, sir. And I meant everything I said. That's facts. Everything I said. Appreciate it.
I'm going to try to interview Dalshia in a second.
Would any of you all be down to do an interview before we go down?
Oh yeah, I do one. All right, Michelle.
We're going to talk to Dalshia.
A long fight for you, a long haul.
Yes.
arduous and harrowing watching your son die in that capacity, not having him here, and now you're left with the void. But you've been fighting.
Yes.
Can you just, I know it's a lot, but can you wrap up that fight in these last 3 years, and what has it accumulated to for you?
Yes, well, it's been very tiring to say the least, but I couldn't give up. I'm fighting not just for Hardel and his 3 little girls that now don't have a father, but I'm fighting for all the other families that have called me crying out for help. And I'm like, and Traren and I had talked about it a while ago, and Traren was like, sis, people are calling you, you got to go do something. So I'm like, yeah, wasn't really ready, but I knew I had to do something. And I have been writing letters, pounding pavement, calling, going and doing whatever, and spending a lot of time in my prayer closet, because prayer changes things. I don't know what everybody else is doing, but as a woman of God, that's where I got to go for my strength. And he hears my cries, and he's been opening doors that no man can shut and shutting doors that no man can open. So to God be the glory. I'm grateful for he gives me the strength, and he has been sending me. The footsteps of a righteous man are ordered of the Lord. Amen. And I just go wherever he tells me to go. I just go. And I've just been doing what he's been giving me the strength and the breath to do. So as long as he gives me breath, I'm going to keep on. Y'all going to hear me. I'm going to be their voices till the day I die, till we get justice and even beyond that. I pray that in all of this, maybe my granddaughters will, I can leave this as a legacy for them. They'll want to take over and, get involved. And I'm sure the oldest one, if not the other 2, Kalia she's pretty feisty. She's like, she had the bullhorn a couple weeks ago. If my dad don't get it, shut it down, because she would hear me, with the bullhorn all the time. She's like, Grandma, let me try it, So, in just those times of spending time with my girls also gives me strength, and it brings me much joy. And I know I'm fighting more so for them than anybody. So, yeah, I'm going to keep my fight on. I'm going to keep my shoes on. Like Kim Handy Jones say, get them boots on the ground, and, I got them on. So, and it's nice to be able to pull back a little bit. And I'm thinking September 2nd this year, instead of doing a Angelversary, which would be Hardel's 3 year, I think I got to go back to Mexico. I need to get away. I really do need to get away. I haven't gone anywhere and taken any type of a break, mental or physical, in the almost 3 years that he's been deceased. So Hardel and I spent his 16th birthday in Mexico. So I think I got to go back to Puerto Vallarta. Yeah.
Swallow that tear. So you wrote a book.
Yes,
and then
I
you
did.
created an organization called Be Their Voices, which you brought up a couple times. Can you bring the viewers tell them about Be Their Voices and the book real quick?
Yes.
And where to find the stuff.
Absolutely. Well, yes, as I had said before, I had actually been writing the book on the journey that I was on with Jesus, feeding the homeless, back in 2012. And so I went down to Georgia, gave away pretty much everything I owned except what he allowed me to take in the trunk of my car, and watches that I had a patent and a trademark on, and had those manufactured over in China. So I had a web-based business. We had those watches manufactured, and we were selling them to help feed the homeless. So that's what we did. And then I came back, and of course, with everything that was going on with Hardel, I knew that I needed to write this book, but I just was like, God, you're going to have to help me write the book. So he did, and we finally got it published last, I believe it was just after his 2-year Angelversary in October. And we've been selling books. I've been doing really well, and I'm just so grateful to God. And where you can find those, of course, our Zulon Press, and the title of the book is called Stay the Course and Watch, with my watch design on the cover, of course. And then, of course, you'll be able to find those books on our newly developed website, which is still kind of under construction, at BeTheirVoices.org. And as you know, I had to start Be Their Voices because, again, they didn't want to hear Hardel's cry. They didn't want to hear his voice. Now they're going to hear his mama's voice, and the voices of all the others whose lives were stolen, and they've left this earth way too young. So yes, betheirvoices.org, and it's betheirvoices.org. And you can also find us on Facebook at Be Their Voices MN. And then, of course, you can give me a shout out on Facebook as well. Of course, under Delshia Perry, or give us a call, and let us know how we may be able to help your family. If you have some needs, or your family's being neglected in a jail or what have you, in the state of Minnesota, of course, because we're not branched out yet. But give me a call, 612-875-9559. I'm here to be your voice. So please give us a call. Thank you.
Last question before we allow you to speak if you want. So we have this bill, this act, and it's along with other acts that are police reform acts and whatnot, but it doesn't seem like it has a political will to get past some of the hurdles that it has to get past.
Right.
Is that going to stop you from pushing for this act? Where do you go from here?
Oh, no, it's not going to stop me. God's given me too much power, too much strength, too much will. I ain't going to stop until it passes. And I believe that it will. And even if it doesn't pass right now, it will eventually pass. I just have to stand on the word of God. He says to call those things forth, which by not as though they were. And I have to put that in the atmosphere because that's the kind of faith that I walk on, and I have. So I believe that it may not, if it doesn't pass this session, this year, it will pass. And I won't stop until it does. So, yes.
Thanks. And so, yeah, you had a large rally up in Beltrami County, went to the Beltrami County Jail, a prayerful protest, right?
Yes.
And you even sprayed holy water across the jail.
It was oil. Yeah, anointed oil. Yes.
Anointed oil.
Yeah.
So you're continuing to stay active in that push.
Oh, absolutely.
What else do you want to talk about when it comes to your son, when it comes to this act that might not be passed, but will be passed in the future, as you say?
Right, exactly.
Anything else you'd want to say?
Well, you pretty much summed it up. I just do what the Lord has me to do. He leads, I follow. And yes, whatever it is that he had, and people might say, well, she crazy. What's she squirting all that oil? That means something. And trust me, that had been prayed over for 30 days by me and my spiritual mother. So that was some powerful oil that was spread out and sprayed out. So we prayed and we sprayed and we sprayed and we prayed. And the people that came up behind me marching, they would step in that oil, and we stepped all the way to the jail because there's such a demonic cloud of evilness over the Beltrami County Jail in that area. I just needed to go up there and shut it down. And that's what I did. And I will continue to do what God calls me to do wherever it is. But right now, my focus is Minnesota. And until we get legislation passed here, then and only then can I branch out and start helping other states. But right now, I've got to do what I need to do for my son, to give, his daughters some sort of knowing that their grandma fought hard for their father, and to leave that legacy. We are hopeful and we're prayerful that we will get some sort of justice in the courts with a lawsuit. But you know what's really sad about that, Nico, is that even though we may win a huge lawsuit, it's not even about the money for us. It's not about it for me, for sure, because money is not going to bring Hardel back. But the thing about it is that that's taxpayers' money. So the people that actually did the harm, unless they're thrown in the jail or in prison or have lost licenses or what have you, they're not going to be really held accountable. So I need to push for that. And that's why I'm working so hard with this legislation to change those laws, the policies and procedures within the DOC, which we've gotten. And February 11th, there was a long list of things that Paul Schnell said, nope, this has to be done. This has to be done. And we're grateful for that. But we still got a long way to go. And until they are held accountable, until criminal charges and convictions come out of what they did to not just Hardel, but to the May family, the Bunker family, Michael Bellinger's family, and all of these other families, Bruce Lundmark's family, until those lives, those people have paid a price for that blood that was shed in Beltrami County Jail, I'm going to have to keep fighting and keep doing and keep pushing for legislative change till the day I die, until he tells me I'm done. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, honey.
Any last words you want to say?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. I was just going to thank you for...
trusting us.
who gave me strength to come forward. I'm so grateful. I can't even thank you isn't even, but I thank you so much, Negro. I love you. Thank you.
Would you want to talk?
I'm going to do one more interview real quick. Again, we're here live in St. Paul, outside the Capitol.
Yeah. Right, man. Love it too.
Hey, we got
We're gonna get the letter with the DOJ next week, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Let's try to put our head.
Yeah. Let's talk.
Hey, thank you.
All right. So thank you for taking a few moments. Can you introduce yourself and then sort of, I have some questions like law questions when it comes to the act and when it comes to even Dr. Todd Leonard, the nurse who came out publicly now. Last time I met you, the nurse had done basically it was a whistleblowing letter that was found in a DOC investigation, the second one, and that nurse hadn't come out, and now the FBI is investigating, and they've talked to that nurse. Can you talk about like where we are legally in this case first?
Sure. Well, legally, in terms of our lawsuit, the case is pending. We're in what's called discovery stage. We're gathering documents, gathering evidence, taking depositions. So we're preparing the case for trial. So that's the lawsuit, the civil lawsuit. That's where it is procedurally. The fight for justice, it's a road that doesn't end. For Delshia, she's never going to stop fighting. Hardel's loss has given her the energy to fight not only for Hardel, for his 3 girls, but for countless other families who are out here who have lost loved ones and don't know where to go. What about people who have loved ones in jail and they don't know where to call? What if you're worried that your loved one is dying or sick and you have no resources and no process in place for you to be able to play a role? If you have a son in jail or a husband or a wife in jail and there's just nothing out there that'll help you make sure that they're well, make sure they're going to get back their families. So through Be Their Voices, Delshia has started an organization that'll help bridge those gaps, not only from this is our lawsuit and then it's separate from the legislation. This is a group that's out there for all the families. Anybody who has incarcerated individuals in their family, incarcerated people themselves, people in jails, people in prisons who need help, and also families who have lost a loved one. There are questions, where do you go? What do you do? Who do you call? Where do you get my loved one's property? She will be there for years to come to bring about that change and to bring, the lawsuit that she has, the legislation, and then the public outreach to bring all that together.
And I saw on her website that you are also offering some legal advice for these cases.
Absolutely. I offer a free consultation to anybody who wants one. So if you found me on Delshia's Be Their Voices website, if you ran into me on the street, if you saw me somewhere else or saw me on the internet, anybody who wants to talk to me about any sort of a civil rights violation with law enforcement, I do police misconduct cases, police brutality cases, or any sort of situation that happens in some sort of a jail or correctional setting, or we have some individuals who are detained in state-operated facilities, mental health institutions. Anytime you have encounter with law enforcement or government agents, I'm happy to talk to anyone and hear you out, see what happened, and tell you what your options are.
You talked about some of the legalities. City and counties have certain, pull over certain areas, certain charging powers.
Yes.
When it comes to Calandra Allen, the jail administrator who said Hardel Sherrell was faking it. When it comes to Dr. Todd Leonard, who's the head of Mend Correctional Care. When it comes to some of these other doctors, even the one that he saw in the hospital,
yes,
who sent him back home and said, yeah, I believe the jail that you're faking it. Who is the person that would bring those charges? And is there any investigation into that realm of things do you know of?
Sure. So the FBI is investigating. The FBI's authority is to pursue criminal charges. And the FBI is an investigative agency, so they can't prosecute you. They can turn over their findings to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and that office can then bring criminal charges under federal law. Similar to what we saw with Derek Chauvin and the three other officers who killed George Floyd. They're being criminally prosecuted now, not only in state court, but also in federal court. Del Shia is seeking the same sort of prosecution for violations of civil rights that happened in Hardel's case. So anytime that there is an official who provides government services, they are subject to the Constitution. And the federal criminal code gives the federal authorities to charge government agents for violating civil rights, for violating constitutional rights. So that could be excessive force, that could be deliberate indifference in a jail setting. So as long as they can establish probable cause and then ultimately, prove beyond reasonable doubt that there was a constitutional violation, they can bring criminal charges. So that's what they're doing. There's also a civil division that is able to investigate civil violations of the same constitutional rights under federal law. And this is something that we saw recently with the city of Minneapolis, that the federal government is going to come in and do an investigation for patterns and practices of civil rights violations. Similar things can happen in jail and prison cases as well. So if the federal government wants to come in and investigate a certain county or a certain city, they can certainly do that, and we welcome that sort of investigation as well.
Thank you for that. It makes
Yes.
It's a lot more clarity for me personally.
Yes.
And then, so when it comes to, so we have this act. It might not go through. We're at sort of the last day, last straws.
Right.
There's not political will, it seems. What is your thought process on how fast the political will can be enacted, or could the Governor Walz be pushing this and push it through, or what is your thoughts where we are right now?
Well, first of all, we remain hopeful that the bill will pass still this session. We don't have a budget still, and so the legislature has to continue working towards a budget. And some of the criminal justice reform bills, including the Hardel Sherrell Act, have been worked into that process. So we're hopeful that, still within the next 2 or 3 weeks, the Hardel Sherrell Act will pass. The most important thing that I can remember about Hardel's bill is it's a non-controversial bill. You have a lot of other bills where there's a lot of fighting between, kind of various groups within the legislature. When the bill was before the committee in the House, the Minnesota House, it passed through the committee with both Democrat and Republican support. As I had mentioned, the Department of Corrections supports the bill. The Sheriff's Association had input on the bill. So this is not a controversial bill that people have any sort of feelings about. It's just, unfortunately, the Senate is holding the bill hostage, as Michelle said, to try to accomplish other objectives that they had, and they're using that as kind of as a bargaining chip to try to get some other things accomplished with the governor and with the Democrats that they're trying to get done before the end of the legislative session. So we're hopeful that the bill will pass, especially because it's supported through various different angles and parts of the government. If it doesn't pass, we're going to keep fighting. This is a fight that Del Shia started almost 3 years ago. If it doesn't pass this round, we're going to come back and we're going to continue to kind of lobby the legislature, work with the Department of Corrections to make sure that this issue remains at the forefront and to make sure that it does pass, because ultimately nobody wants people dying in county jails. The problem is you walk in there is limited resources to reach the outside. If you don't have any money, you can't call anyone. You can send a letter. Hardel could not write anymore. He couldn't eat or drink. He couldn't call. He couldn't send a letter. He was stuck in a place where he couldn't reach out. And the people that were trying to reach out to the jail were being blocked by this wall, which is, we can't give you information. And so the Hardel Sherrell Act will change all that. But our goal is to keep fighting, and if it doesn't pass, we're going to come back and we're going to keep pushing it until it does.
Thank you for that. I'm going to rewind 1 second real quick. The last question I have.
Yes.
what we noticed, what I think you've even brought up before, up in St. Cloud at Mend Correctional Care,
Right.
was, this is my words, was that it was either a gross incompetence or a very well done cover-up, right? What is your interpretation after following this case and taking on this case? It seemed like in the lawsuit it was very well put out that all these steps that the jail took that were wrong steps.
Right.
Is this a cover-up or is this incompetence?
Well, it's definitely incompetence. In our view, the way that Hardel was treated, every step of the way, I don't know of any other term to describe that. It's reckless. It's incompetent. He was dying in front of their eyes, through a matter of days. This wasn't an acute illness that just happened and he died right away. He was there. They watched this whole thing happen. At one point, this is after he came back from the hospital, and you've heard this before. Shortly after, he rolled off his bed and he was just left on the floor, face down for 8 hours. And they knew that he was there. They knew that he had dropped to the floor and he was stuck there. He couldn't move, but he was left there all night until the morning. So it's incompetence. It's recklessness. The cover-up that I talked about, I want to put that into kind of better context. So initially, when Hardel died, there was a press release that was put out by Beltrami County saying that Hardel had become, I'm trying to remember the terminology, but that he became unresponsive after he fell out of bed or something like that, or he collapsed and became unresponsive. Sorry, that was the wordage, I believe. And the reality, if you watch the videos, I mean, yeah, he did collapse at various times, but on the day when he died, there was no more collapsing going on. He couldn't move anymore. And him, it sounded like he kind of just passed out. Just all of a sudden this person was there, and then all of a sudden he became unresponsive. And that's the exact opposite of what happened. He was there. They watched his situation progress. Hour after hour after hour. He couldn't eat. He couldn't drink. He was defecating and urinating on himself. He couldn't move anymore. He couldn't swallow his saliva. He was drooling, and they were cleaning up the drool out of his mouth. And so the cover-up started there with that press release, which inaccurately portrayed the condition and the suffering and the torture that he went through. And then once Stephanie Lundblad had sent her letters to the Department of Corrections, to the Ramsey County Medical Examiner's Office. The Ramsey County Medical Examiner Office issued its findings. The autopsy report came out after they had received Stephanie Lundblad's letter. And so why is there zero mention in the autopsy report about the fact that, hey, we're not asking for some kind of in-depth coverage, but there should have definitely been, if this is an investigation into a death, and you receive a letter like that talks about the conditions Hardel was in at the jail, there should have been at least a mention of that letter, of the fact that they received the complaint in the autopsy report. The Department of Corrections also received the same letter, which also disappeared into some kind of other vague file that nobody was able to find for a number of years. And so when I talk about a cover-up, this is what I mean. This is the system that works to protect itself. I'm not saying that all of these different agencies, got together after Hardel died and said, hey, we're going to cover this thing up, let's do it. The sad thing is they don't have to. The system just works itself out in a way that no matter where she sent her complaints, and she sent also to the Board of Medical Practice and the Nursing Board. So 4 government agencies had this information days after Hardel died. And for some reason, her letter was covered up. The public didn't know about it. And the places that had the opportunity to mention it, at least, or bring it up or take it into consideration, failed to do that as well. And so that's the cover-up. And frankly, the fact that the cover-up happened on its own without anyone having to step in and organize it, in my view, that's even more tragic than if somebody actually got together and planned it.
Wow, that's pretty deep.
Right.
Anything else you want to add when it comes to the act, when it comes to this case, when it comes to inmates in jail and medical care in general, anything?
The only other thing I'll say is that we have to keep reminding everyone else that people who are in jail are human beings. They came out of our communities, they ended up in jail, and they're going to go back to our communities. So these aren't some kind of rejects. These aren't people that have done some kind of horrible things that they should be put away and forgotten. These are regular people like you and me. I don't want to name names, but even some people that work at the legislature, some of the elected officials have ended up in jails, both in the metro area and in rural areas. And you can look them up, you'll find them if you want to. So it can happen to anyone, it can happen to anyone's kid. And when we do end up in that sort of situation, we are kind of a lot of times at our worst point in our life. People are often distraught, they're suffering a mental health crisis. You're thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen to my family, what's going to happen to my bills, am I going to lose my house? People in that setting need help. And if they have the bare minimum standards that the Hardel Sherrell Act calls for, that Delcia Perry has been fighting for, we will not have people dying in jails. And that's really all we want. We want to save lives. We want to make sure that people that belong in the community are able to get back to the community after serving their debt to society.
Thank you. Any last words?
Thank you. That's all I have. And thank you for all your coverage. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate you taking the time.
All right. Not a problem. See you later.
See you. Thank you. Oh, you were great. Thank you so much for taking the time. Get this down 1 second. Okay. So thank you all for tuning in. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. We are looking at the state capitol right now. We just heard from Zoroslav, the attorney for Hardel Sherrell, and Hardel Sherrell's case, working with his mother who's been fighting for justice and accountability for her son who died in Beltrami County Jail in 2018. He died from Guillain-Barré syndrome, and it's a rare disease that attacked his immune system and his nervous system and struck him sort of unmovable and unlivable in so many ways. He complained. The nurses and jailers said he was faking. They denied his trip to the hospital. A nurse practitioner working for Men's Correctional Care pushed for him to go to the hospital. He finally went. The hospital said that he was faking as well. He got sent back to jail, and he died in a jail cell in medical segregation. If you want to know more information about that case, go to unicornriot.ninja. We were the first ones to break the story with the jail videos. His mother, Delcia Perry, who you saw earlier, Hardel's mother, was able to procure jail videos with her investigative lawyers. And I'm not sure if Zoroslav was one of them. I should have asked him. But essentially, what's happened since then is numerous investigations and numerous other deaths have been found. After we dropped the special that showed Delcia speaking about her son's case and also the jail videos, Fox 9 and KARE 11 also did specials. KARE 11 has continued to follow on the story and has investigated over 50 deaths. Their investigations have found over 50 deaths inside Minnesota jails. So it's not a singular issue. As people talk about with George Floyd and the murder of George Floyd by the police, it's not a singular issue. The same with Hardel Sherrell, and the same with inside jails and medical care inside jails. As people have already known, or as people talk about, medical care within the medical system, there's a lot of racism that goes on, and people continue to look at that, as well as when they're looking at the medical care that black folks and brown and indigenous folks get inside the jails, and comparing that to the society as well, and to the healthcare in society. That is just another aspect of it. Beyond that, the Hardel Sherrell Act would be pushing for families to have more control, families to have more voice, and families to have more ability in the care of their loved one. Hardel was rendered, as you heard from Zoroslav, he was unable to speak, he was unable to eat, he was unable to make a phone call, so therefore he was not able to tell his mother what was happening. His mother was unable to get to him and get information from him because of HIPAA laws, and those laws prevent the dissemination of information of private individuals to the public, even if it's their family members. And so they're trying to break down that wall. As you heard, we heard from Tony May's family as well. Tony May also died inside Beltrami County Jail, along with Bruce Lundmark, Stephanie Bunker. I feel like maybe I'm missing another one. And also we heard from Naj Powell's aunt, Clara. And so Naj Powell died in Hennepin County Jail. Basically, what you see also in front of you is some kind of pro-Trump rally that's just ending and people are leaving. So that is the Minnesota State Capitol in the background in St. Paul. We just witnessed a press conference for the demanding of the passage of the Hardel Sherrell Act. The legislature could pass this act, which would grant these families the ability to speak for their loved ones. Dalshia has created Be Their Voices, which is a nonprofit organization tended to just do that, speak for the loved ones lost in jail. And again, if you want to know more information about any of all of this, go to unicornriot.ninja. We have a new post up that sort of brings you back to some of the old postings that we've done. And there's some more information that we will continue to pull out for you all, and some other videos that we will continue to make in this near future. So thank you all for tuning in. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Thank you so much, Alex, on the back end. We are a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit educational organization dedicated to bringing context to social and environmental struggles, and we wouldn't be able to do this without your support and your ability, or your financial support and donations. And so if you're financially privileged and you like our work and you want to continue to support us, go to unicornriot.ninja/donate. All the donations are tax deductible. We also accept crypto and checks. You can send them to our P.O. box and cash. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Again, thank you, Alex, for running the back end. Want to know more information about Hardel Sherrell? Go to unicornriot.ninja. Check out our Twitter feed, UR_ninja, Instagram, unicorn.riot, YouTube, Vimeo, and Facebook. All right, you all, take care. We also have Twitch and Mastodon that we are going to be working on pushing forward. So thank you all again. You all take care. Have a good night, and we will see you all soon. Peace.